starting to interpret is within the third eye. Now, I've got a lot of students that are asking, can you open the third eye? What are tricks and tips on how to actually make sure that is open? So when we start to, I guess, filter or clear, okay, so emotional clearing is a great technique. What we're putting into the body, because the body itself is also docking a lot of frequencies. So right now, as I'm talking to you, we're looking at a beta frequency. So we're working on a sine wave. So it's working on this. Let's go on the left side. So it's working on this bigger wave. Okay, so this is beta. And then the right side, which is the intuitive side, is more quick. So it's more or less like that. So that is more like in a delta theta. Okay, very similar to when you're sleeping. So you get into a sleep state. Sometimes when you wake up, you're like you're able to recall your dreams. You're like, wow, I saw this image, that type of thing. Now, when you're interpreting the frequencies within your body, a lot of times they're going to be images. So it's an image. Okay, so the image is basically using your Rolodex of what you've known since you've been a little kid. So, when we're growing up, we're being shown what a car looks like, or we're being shown what a house looks like. That's why we're going to school, and they're showing shapes, circles, squares, that type of thing. So these are images that we have within our database of our information. Now, what becomes very confusing is that the body itself is always, within the environment, working from that list. Okay, so that makes sense, this doesn't make sense, I can't interpret that, I can't interpret this. Now, there's actually a great story out there about when the Europeans started to conquer America, and one of the stories is basically the reference point of when the Indians saw the actual large ships coming closer towards the actual shore. They could only see the actual body or the person or the European coming off the ship, but they couldn't see the ship because they didn't have any point of reference. They had their canoes and that type of thing, but they couldn't see the larger ship. They could only see that the body of water was starting to move, but they couldn't interpret or decode. Okay, so this is a very, very important word here, decoding the actual environment. Okay, so when you start to decode the frequency, all right, which is basically your interpretation. Now, my interpretation is different from what your interpretation is. So when I say to you, if I close my eyes and I get into an intuitive reading and I see an apple to me could mean, teaching, could be also nutrition. For somebody else, it means something, it could be nature, that type of thing. So when you start to look at how you're interpreting or decoding the information that is coming in, okay, from your environment, okay, because it's constantly, I can tell you this, we're being bombarded by information, especially if you're sitting in front of a TV, or you're listening to music, even within the environment. You can't even look at your cell phone when you're getting your Wi-Fi without being bombarded with the actual Wi-Fi signal. Now, even they've got these HD antennas now that you can actually pick up free signals. So there's constant signals being pushed out into the environment, such as TV signals, radio signals, waves, that type of thing. So your body is actually interpreting these signals, and sometimes, if you're very sensitive, because I can tell you this, everybody has a sensitivity to the environment, and it's all dependent on how you're coping with it. So if you're more of an empath, you're almost like a little sponge, so you're absorbing information, okay, energetic information from somebody, from a handshake, from a hug, even when somebody talks to you. You can even just be sitting nice and still, and you're picking up the information from some of your coworkers that are actually in the next cubicle or in the next room. So when you start to interpret that information, that is basically what a reading is. So your interpretation